Welcome to the Armani Talks YouTube channel. I'm your host, Armani Talks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills for you to level up your way with words and become much more articulate. In today's episode, we're going to be entering the world of social skills and emotional intelligence, and we're going to be breaking down a short story from my book, Street Smarts, 101 Short Stories, Essays, and Insights to Improve Your Communication Skills, which is currently available on Amazon and Audible. I'm going to drop the links for the book in the description box and the pinned comment right on below. This story that we're going to be breaking down is how to maintain your cool, which is the essence of emotional intelligence. There's a big difference between being reactive and responsive. Being reactive is being impulsive. Being responsive is being mature. There was this one time when I was chilling with a bunch of buddies, and two of them were getting into a debate about sports right in front of me. One guy was very short. Think of him as Short Sammy. And the other guy was very tall. Think of him as Tall Timmy. So the big height difference between the two was making this debate even funnier. And at first, it seemed like a comical sort of debate between two buddies. But as more time started to go on by, it started to look pretty heated. It looked like the two were going to fight. I mean, they were screaming at each other. And I really thought that punches were going to be thrown that day. But that wasn't the case. It's because one of them did something to the other person that shifted the entire interaction towards their favor. Here's what happened. Short Sammy, in the mid-debate, suddenly stops and he's like, "Timmy, don't make me slap the shit out of you again." And when he said that, the friends, we bust out laughing. And as we bust out laughing, Timmy is like, "Me? You never slapped me before. When did you slap me? Show some evidence. Provide some proof." And he starts freaking out. Once he starts freaking out like that, Short Sammy smirks and he acknowledges his win. Because here's the funny thing in regards to the imagination. It doesn't really care about logic too much. Because logically, myself and all the friends knew that Short Sammy didn't slap Tall Timmy. But seeing Timmy's reaction like that was enough for us to envision him getting slapped and for us to understand that the short man won this battle. Now, this is a whole comical situation, but imagine if there's a form of reaction that occurs in a high-stakes scenario, whether it's a negotiation, whether it's a battle with a manager, a battle with a client, etc. A reaction like Timmy can cost us money, time, and a lot of sanity. How is it that a person can shift their behavior from being reactive to responsive? Well, one of the things is to understand that being responsive is in many times having inaction. All action does not require movement. A lot of the times, some of the best action out there is inaction, and inaction is born from wisdom. Now, how is it that someone builds wisdom that can change their behavior in scenarios like this, when a short guy is saying that they slapped a tall guy? How? Well, one way is through long-term thinking. A person who is envisioning the future or is working on something today that will benefit their lives 10 years from now automatically becomes more responsive in nature, because these sort of moments, like the Short Sammys of the world, aren't viewed as a life sentence. They're actually, like, imagine this long freaking line. I'm talking very long. They're seen as this little blip. And when it's seen as a little blip rather than this huge mountain, it's much easier for Timmy to be responsive in that scenario. So one of the ways to be responsive is through long-term thinking. Another thing is through expecting something. If Timmy was over here interacting with Short Sammy And he was expecting, okay, well, this guy is clearly raising his tonality. He's yelling. I mean, he's moving his body a lot. I expect he's going to do something to rattle me right now. And then Short Sammy says something to rattle Timmy. If Timmy had already expected that this guy was going to behave a certain way, once again, he's going to be responsive. This whole scenario goes from being something that was pissing him off to now turning into a comical situation. So 2 ways to go from being reactive to responsive is 1, through long-term thinking, and 2, is to expect people to be like people, which for the most part is reactive. This is a phenomenal way in order to understand how to improve and maintain the cool. Even the most responsive person out there, every now and then, goes back into the reactive nature. And that's why emotional intelligence is a workout for the internal world that allows a person to consistently recalibrate and change their mindset in future interactions from reactive to responsive. It's a muscle. And the more that we build this muscle, the more that these reactive emotions are channeled inwards and then upwards. You know what emotions that are channeled inwards and upwards equates to? Creativity. All creative people understand the art and science of using their emotions not so much on the external world, but on their internal world first to unlock elevated thought waves, which then they can channel into some sort of creative vehicle. But that's a talk for another time. The recap for today's talk is that the essence of emotional intelligence is to go from reactive to responsive. To be responsive, we either need long-term thinking or expecting people to be people. From there, it's the Timmys in the world that can maintain their cool when the Short Sammys in the world are trying to get reaction out of them. And that's when the tall Timmys can be much more creative with the preserved emotion for the future. If you want more practical insights on how to improve your emotional intelligence, how to improve your social skills, and better interact with people in high-pressure scenarios, be sure to check out Street Smart's 101 short stories, essays, and insights to improve your communication skills. This book has multiple stories and insights that tackle communication skills from multiple angles, so you now have added wisdom that allows you to be responsive in the future. Check out Street Smarts in the description box or the pinned comment, and thank you very much for joining the Armani Talks YouTube channel.